The first wave of migration from Siberia to Alaska begins around 13,000 BC. By 9500 BC, they reach the southernmost point of South America, about 11,000 miles away from the Bering Strait. This theory is the most commonly accepted explanation for the peopling of the Americas. More recent scholarship, however, is starting to suggest that this might not have been the case. Evidence collected from the Pacific coast of the Americas, also along with the Atlantic coast of Brazil, suggests that people were in the Americas as early as 40,000 BC. Furthermore, skeletal remains of early Americans suggest that they may have North Asian features. They also have similarities with Caucasians, Polynesians, and Australasians. One skeleton in Washington state is about 9,000 years old and had features similar to that of the ancient Ainu of Japan. South American Native Americans are overwhelmingly blood type O. Asians are predominantly blood type B. This suggests that the migration must have occurred before the current genetic makeup of Asians. Some scholars suggest that through DNA analysis, most Native Americans descend from a single population group in Asia, but even then, these findings are in dispute. The earliest human inhabitants of the Americas lived by hunting and gathering. Around 8000 BC, it became difficult to forage. Animals were becoming scarce because they did not adapt to the warming climate and because of overhunting. We see this trend throughout the world, but only in the Americas do we actually see a widespread extinction rate. By 7500 BC, many species were on the road to extinction. Some communities relied on fish and small game to supplement the food that they gathered. Others turned to agriculture. Evidence suggests that the cultivation of plants took place as early as 7000 BC in Peru. The introduction of agriculture in the Americas, though, appears not to have inspired a widespread revolution as it did elsewhere on the planet. By 8000 to 7000 BC, the peoples of Mesoamerica, the region between central Mexico and to Honduras and El Salvador, they cultivated squash, manioc, beans, chili peppers, avocados, and gourds. By 4000 BC, they discovered maize. Along with maize came peppers, squash, and beans. Maize spread throughout the Americas. By 2000 BC, it was grown in Peru along with potatoes. By 1000 BC, the Iroquois in Canada were growing it. Later, they added tomatoes. Tropical agriculture was based on manioc, or cassava, which was grounded into a powder. Early Mesoamericans had a diet rich in cultivated foods, but didn't keep many animals. Their domestic animals were limited to just basically turkey and small barkless dogs. There was no cattle, sheep, goats, or pigs in the Americas. Toward the end of the second millennium BC, the temple of Mesoamerican life quickens as elaborate ceremonial centers with large pyramids, temples, and palaces arose alongside these agricultural villages. These aren't cities. Permanent residents of these ceremonial centers included the ruling elite, the priests, artisans, and craftsmen. Large numbers would gather in these centers only on special occasions or on market days to exchange goods, but most of them would return to their villages. The Olmecs are going to basically appear out of nowhere. There's no evidence of a gradual development of civilization out of the archaeological record. Out of nowhere, it seems, irrigated agriculture, urbanism, religion, and the beginning of a calendar and a writing system appears. Their settlements with drainage systems and temples suggest a high degree of social organization. Agricultural villages and ceremonial centers are going to arise all throughout Mesoamerica. The earliest example is near Veracruz, which serves as a nerve center for Olmec society. Scholars have studied Olmec society only since the 1940s, and many questions remain. For example, what's their proper name? We don't know. The term Olmec means rubber people, because it derives from the rubber trees that flourished in the region they inhabited. Some basic features of Olmec society, however, has become clear. Olmec traditions influenced Mesoamerica until the arrival of the Europeans in the 1400s. The first Olmec ceremonial center arose from around 1200 BC on the site of modern-day San Lorenzo. It served as the capital for about 400 years. San Lorenzo will wane, and leadership is going to pass to first La Venta and then to Tres Zapotes. These sites define the heartland of the Olmec society, where agriculture produced rich harvests. The region receives abundant rainfall, and like the Harappans, the Olmecs constructed drainage systems to divert the waters. Olmec society was probably authoritarian in nature. Laborers participated in the construction of San Lorenzo, La Venta, and Tres Botes. Each featured temples, pyramids, altars, sculptures, and tombs for rulers. Common subjects delivered a portion of their harvest for the maintenance of the elite class living in the ceremonial centers and provided labor for construction projects. They provided appropriate artistic adornment for their capitals. The most distinctive artistic creation of the Olmecs were colossal human heads, maybe the likeness of rulers, sculpted from basalt rock. The largest of these is about 3 meters, about 10 feet tall, and weighs 20 tons, and required the labor of 1,000 people. Olmec capitals featured other stone sculptures and buildings that required thousands of laborers. Much of what we know about the Olmecs comes from their art and literature and architecture. Olmec art was decorative and functional. It defined a person's place in the universe and in society. Olmec symbols and artistic style was widespread, but unfortunately we don't know why. Did it spread through trade, colonies, conquest, or did people look at it, like it, and adopt it as their own? We don't have an answer. Olmec influence, though, extended from Mexico to Guatemala and El Salvador. Olmecs also spread their influence by military force and trade. Olmecs produced large decorative objects from jade, and they made extensive use of obsidian for their weaponry, such as axes and knives. Amongst the mysteries, one concerns their decline and fall. They destroyed their ceremonial centers at San Lorenzo and La Venta and deserted the sites. Archaeologists found statues broken and buried, monuments defaced, and the capitals themselves burned. Intruders may have ravaged the ceremonial centers, and many believe that the Olmecs deliberately destroyed their capitals. Nevertheless, by 400 BC, Olmec society had fallen, and soon thereafter other societies were replacing it. Olmec traditions, however, were influencing these later societies. They made astronomical observations and created a calendar. The Olmec calendar combines two, one with a 365-day year and the other with a 260-day ritual cycle. They invented a system of writing, although little of that survives. They also carried out a ball game and also human sacrifice. Later peoples are going to adopt all of these traditions.